Hello and welcome to the Insights and Motivation YouTube podcast. Yes, this is an AI-generated content, but remember, there was a human at the beginning of it, creating and curating this material with care and purpose. I request you, dear listener, to step aside from any bias and listen to the message itself. Take the message, not the messenger. That is the key. The same is true for the rest of the playlists and podcasts on this channel, each designed to inspire thought, dialogue, and transformation. Now let me begin the podcast. Social structures and institutions. Culture-preserving applications of democratic principles. Social structures are the invisible architecture of societies. Family systems, kinship bonds, gender roles, education traditions, professional hierarchies, and leadership styles define how people interact, lead, and sustain collective life. Democracy, when applied to these structures, is not about erasing them. It is about balancing respect for tradition with fairness, inclusion, and accountability. Schools and classrooms become the training ground where students learn to navigate both heritage and modernity with dignity. 1. Equality and inclusivity in schools. Why structures matter. Inequalities are often reinforced by family expectations, gender roles, or hierarchical norms. Schools must act as spaces where everyone's dignity is equal, regardless of background. Cultural lenses, examples. India, joint families with strong kinship duties, caste and gender roles shaping opportunities. Middle East, extended families and patriarchal decision-making. East Asia, Confucian hierarchy, elders and teachers highly respected. Africa, kinship-based clans where community raises the child. Europe, North America, nuclear families and individual-centered systems. Practical cultivation. Charter of Equality explicitly state that all genders, castes, and family backgrounds are treated with equal respect. Inclusive family days represent joint families, single parents, guardians, adoptive and foster families equally. Gender-neutral spaces encourage mixed participation in sports, leadership, and classroom roles. Awareness programs teach about diverse kinship models globally so students respect difference. 2. Freedom and rights. Why structures matter. Students should feel free to define their identities beyond rigid social expectations. Cultural lenses. Young girls restricted from certain subjects or sports. Boys pressured into masculine careers. LGBTQ+ students silenced in conservative contexts. Practical cultivation. Policy. Guarantee freedom to choose activities, roles, and career pathways without bias. Classroom allows students to share family traditions while affirming their right to forge their own paths. Support systems. Safe spaces and counseling for students facing role-based pressures. Pedagogy. Open choice projects where students can reimagine traditions, e.g. a daughter taking on a ritual role traditionally reserved for sons. 3. Rule of law and accountability. Why structures matter. Hierarchies, when unchecked, can lead to favoritism or discrimination. Rules must apply equally to all. Practical cultivation. Codes of conduct. Apply classroom rules equally to teachers and students. Respect, punctuality, accountability. Disciplinary fairness. No student should face harsher penalties due to family status or gender. Accountability channels. Independent review committees to hear bias or harassment cases. Teacher training. Anti-bias education to dismantle hidden hierarchies. 4. Participation and representation. Why structures matter. Representation ensures all voices across family status, gender, caste, or tribe are heard. Practical cultivation. Student councils. Reserve positions for girls, minorities, and underrepresented groups. Class leadership. Rotate leadership roles instead of always reinforcing dominant groups. Community engagement. Invite parents, guardians from diverse family backgrounds to represent perspectives. Curriculum. Highlight leaders from marginalized communities in history and civics classes. Transparency and truthfulness. Why structures matter. Social power often hides in unspoken privileges, gender, family status, or networks. Transparency makes hidden hierarchies visible. Practical cultivation. Policy openness. Publish criteria for leadership roles, scholarships, and awards. Curriculum clarity. Teach openly about systems like caste, patriarchy, or class divisions without glorification or stigma. Feedback. Publish surveys on inclusion and fairness. Dialogue. Encourage students to reflect honestly on privilege and inequality in society. 6. Deliberation and dialogue. Why structures matter. Social traditions can clash with modern expectations. Dialogue bridges these tensions. Practical cultivation. Structured dialogues. Host conversations on topics like gender roles, family expectations, career choices. Role play. Students simulate decision-making in traditional councils and modern parliaments. Story circles. Share personal experiences of navigating family and institutional norms. Respect rules. Debate without shaming. Dissent framed respectfully. 7. Checks, balances, and power sharing. Why structures matter. Concentrated authority, whether of elders, teachers, or leaders, can silence younger or minority voices. Practical cultivation. Shared governance. Student, teacher, and parent committees for major school policies. Rotating leadership. Class monitors or cultural event leaders rotate by gender and group. Feedback loops. Publish actions taken after surveys on bias or exclusion. Audits. Regularly evaluate whether power is fairly shared across school communities. 8. Civic education and awareness. Why structures matter. Understanding family, gender, and hierarchy helps students understand how societies govern themselves. Practical cultivation. Mock councils. Replicate traditional family or tribal decision-making alongside student parliaments. Heritage studies. Teach about kinship models, African clans, Indian joint families, East Asian filial piety, European nuclear families. Service projects. Link civic duty with family community responsibility, elder care, mentoring younger students. Comparative dialogue. Discuss how different cultures balance hierarchy and democracy. Social justice and equity. Why structures matter. Oppressive systems like casteism, patriarchy, racism, or exclusion of LGBTQ+ individuals need reform within a democratic ethic. Practical cultivation. Scholarships for underrepresented family backgrounds, first-generation learners, girls in STEM. Equity clubs. Student groups dedicated to gender equity, caste class awareness, or disability inclusion. Counseling. Trauma-informed services for students facing family or social discrimination. Curriculum reform. Ensure textbooks acknowledge reformers and leaders who challenged unjust systems. Tomorrow morning micro-practices. Start class with a family fact. Students share how decision-making happens in their homes. Rotate classroom responsibilities equally among genders. Post a visible equity pledge signed by all students. Role play. What would a grandmother, father, and daughter each say in this decision? Keep a weekly fairness reflection journal. Minimal policy kit. 1. Social equity charter. Equal respect across family, caste, gender. 2. Inclusive leadership policy. 3. Anti-discrimination code for teachers and students. 4. Civic and family representation policy. 5. Annual social equity survey. Assessment and accountability. Balance of leadership roles by gender, caste, and group. Student surveys on dignity and fairness. Number of inclusive family events hosted. Reduction in reported social bias incidents. Evidence of reforms after survey findings. Culture-specific examples. India, Vedic-rooted. Teach how Grihastha ashram, householder stage, balance duties to family and society. Show how sabas and panchayats allowed collective decision-making, early democratic seeds. Discuss how caste created inequities, but also how reformers and Vedic principles of Rita, cosmic order, emphasize justice and fairness. East Asia, explore Confucian respect for hierarchy while teaching checks on authority. Africa, clan-based kinship as models of collective responsibility. Middle East, Majlis, council as a participatory forum alongside patriarchal traditions. Europe, evolution from feudal hierarchies to nuclear families and democratic institutions. Indigenous North America, consensus-driven tribal councils as democratic practice. Global deaf culture, community-led institutions, emphasizing visual equity and collective responsibility. Did this podcast resonate with you? Are you an educator or a higher authority with the ability to influence educational policy and reform? If so, I encourage you to share this podcast as widely as possible within your connections, and do share and subscribe to this channel. This channel has lots of playlists and educational, psychological content with a focus on how to improve all systems of education, corporate culture, and many such topics. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for our next podcast.